Welcome everyone to Unwind Flow Yoga. Amanda here for our restorative practice for the spine. So for today's practice, we will need a few props. You will need a blanket and a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you can approximate this with some pillows, some rolled up blankets. If you have yoga blocks, you can allow those to be your foundation. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we incorporate our bolster, but for now we can just lie down on the back. So moving the props off to the side, you can maybe bring your blanket underneath you for a little bit more coziness. When you're ready, lying down on the back. So in this practice, it's restorative yoga, so it's a very restful practice. It's about finding that restoration and rejuvenation, and so it might be nicer in this practice as well to keep your socks on, add a few extra layers, keep yourself nice and warm and supported. We're going to come to our first pose here and use that as part of our centering. So with our knees bent, feet on the floor, we're going to walk our feet about as wide as our mat and then allow the knees to drop in towards each other. So our inner knees, inner thighs here are making contact. And then allow the arms to rest where it's ever most comfortable. And I often like to walk my shoulder blades a little bit further onto the back body just to create a little bit more opening in the chest here. Using that extra space to move the breath a little bit more freely. Once you've arrived in your pose, making any little adjustments, so we'll be here for a few moments. You might find it makes sense for you to walk the feet a little bit further away from you, maybe a little closer, maybe widening the knees, widening the feet to create more of an angle for the knees, or walking them a little bit closer together. You want your shape to feel balancing here and almost effortless in a way. If it's comfortable for you, soften the eyes closed and release the jaw here. So maybe open the mouth, move that lower jaw a little bit side to side. Notice as you relax the jaw here, you feel softening through the sides of the neck. Bringing our awareness a little bit lower down the spine here, about in between the shoulder blades. And as we bring our attention there, connecting that to the breath, so noticing the chest rise and fall. Noticing how that impacts the spine in between the shoulder blades. Do you feel that area moving away from the mat? Moving a little bit closer towards the floor on the exhale. Bring our awareness here so we can soften the space that often has tension for those of us that sit at a desk for a lot of the day. Bringing your awareness a little bit further down the spine now. Maybe towards the low back. And if you're like me and you experience low back pain sometimes, as you bring your awareness down there, that might bring up some of those sensations, some of those memories of discomfort, those twinging pain, the dull aching pain. Notice if that arises in your mind and see if you can contrast that with how well supported this area of your body feels right now. Bring some awareness of the structure of our spine as we rest here gently. Acknowledging that as we move through our poses today, we're not looking for any large sensations here, so it's a really soft and restful practice. And that it's almost better in our poses to back off and try to do as little as possible, and knowing that that has the most benefit of our poses. Taking another scan here through the spine, through any areas of the body that are calling your attention today. Seeing how you might be able to better support those areas as we move through our practice. Take another breath in. Exhale, release. And then from here, separate the knees here, walk the feet a little bit closer together, and then give the legs just like the tiniest sway side to side. So maybe moving like a centimeter to either side of the sacrum, either side of the spine there. Really stopping yourself here from incorporating too much effort and too much movement. And then from there, hug the knees into the chest, wrap the arms around the legs, and then roll over onto one side. Use that arm as a pillow, pause there. And then pressing yourself up just enough that you can grab onto your props here. So we'll need our bolster and our blanket. The blanket is optional here, but adds that extra layer of comfort. So we're going to take our bolster the long way on our mat, and I'll just talk about some options here if you don't have the bolster. So if you have yoga blocks, you might like to stack them one in front of the other, and then if you have many blankets or pillows, you can just layer those directly on top of your blocks and use that for your support. I have my yoga bolster here, so I'm going to bring that back in. And then from here, we're going to come into just a nice supportive twist. So for some extra height, we can pile another blanket on top, or we can adjust this blanket to make sure our whole front body is supported. From here, let's take our right hip up right close to our bolster, and the legs can be in this staggered shape. You can even bring them into more of a pinwheel shape as well. I'm going to keep mine a little bit closer together today, and then one hand on either side of your bolster or whatever you've approximated here. Now what we're going to do is lay our front body down onto our support, and then take the head in the same direction as the knees. So I'm on my right side. I'm going to take the right side of my head down onto my support here, and then resting the arms down by the sides, making sure we don't have any effort in the arms. So if we need to walk them a little bit forward, maybe even wrap them around the front of our support, and then rest the head down. I might lift my head up a few points here just for sound quality, but your head should be gently rested on your support. Once you've arrived and taken a few breaths, notice if you'd like to make any small adjustments, maybe with the legs here, bring them closer or further apart. If you need to soften that left side chest a little bit closer down to your support. If you notice any tension in the arms, the shoulders. Try not to overthink it here. Noticing if anything stands out to you, but if not, just release it, let it go, enjoy some stillness here. as we stay here a little bit longer, connecting here to this sense of support, feeling your upper body supported by your props, knowing that as you're supported, you're allowed to just drop in. You're allowed to feel comforted. Take a moment to check in here. We'll be here for about another minute, so what can you do to make this pose a little bit more luxurious? And maybe that's doing nothing at all. Maybe that's staying exactly as you are, focusing just on the breath. Take another breath in. Exhale, let it go. And then from here, we'll slowly start to transition towards the second side. So with as little effort as possible, start to re-support yourself through the arms. Gently press yourself up. And I like just to roll over onto the second side. So switching the hips, I'll just switch myself here. So the left hip is now close towards my bolster. And then from here, rotating the chest so it's directly on top of your bolster, and then lowering yourself all the way down. Once again, our head will face the same direction as our knees. So the left side of the head lowers down. Seeing if you can drop in right away. Noticing the variations that felt good on the first side, and maybe trying those out here, but noticing if you have any differences one side to the other. So maybe differences in the hips maybe might make a leg variation more comfortable. Check into the arms, making sure they're rested. Soften the eyes closed if that's comfortable, and then notice how it feels just to be still. Notice what it feels like to give yourself the time just to feel good, to feel nourished, feel relaxed. Take a moment to check in there. Maybe bringing your awareness back to those areas of the spine that we checked into at the beginning of class. Maybe that's the neck, the space between the shoulder blades, or the lower spine. Can you make one of those areas a little softer? Can you often offer that area a little bit of compassion? Take another breath in. Exhale, release. And then slowly start to re-support yourself, bringing weight into one arm and then the other. And then just make your way into a tabletop. Sit back onto your heels for a moment. Pause there. And then we'll readjust our supports here for our final pose. So we're going to come into one of my favorite poses. Super simple, but I find it's really effective for relaxation and for the spine. We're going to take our bolster or whatever you've approximated. A pillow works really well here. Maybe even 2 pillows stacked up on top of each other. This time horizontal on our mat. Our knees will go on top of this, the backs of our knees. And then we're going to take our blanket towards the head of our mat. If you have any plants on your mat, just move them out of the way. And then towards the end of your blanket, we're just going to give it 1 fold, just so it's slightly higher than the rest of the blanket. If you have a really thin blanket, this might mean 2 folds, but it's really just the slightest higher than the rest of our blanket. And then from here, we're going to lie back. This folded area that's a couple inches wide, that's going to go right at the tips of our shoulder blades and up. And as I mentioned, the backs of our knees will go over this bolster. So you can set your legs up first here and then start to lower yourself down onto your blanket. And see if you can line up the blanket with the backs of the shoulders, and then arms can come out into a T or a cactus, however much room you have there. And then with the support under the knees, you want to make sure the heels are on the floor. So if your support is maybe too high, you might need to lower it, maybe remove a blanket. Making sure the heels are on the ground. And then once you've arrived, see if you can find that stillness once again. Maybe close the eyes. Checking back into this awareness that the purpose of our class today is to notice how little we can do and how doing very little feels nourishing, feels supportive, feels like we're doing exactly what we need to be doing. If you're like me and you've experienced sometimes with pain in the spine, maybe even a chronic injury, sometimes we feel like we don't know what to do that'll make us feel better. And sometimes resting might make us feel even that little bit, even just a little bit better. And maybe that's just quieting down the mind. Allowing ourselves to notice something positive that's happening right now. Even sometimes in these moments when maybe you feel the pain in the body, knowing that it's just temporary, and if you come back to this class again, maybe you'll have a little bit more freedom in your movement. Bringing your awareness to the low back area. Feeling it soften into your support. Almost feeling like it's spreading out, getting wider. Sensation of melting, releasing. welcome to stay here as long as you like. If you're comfortable here, knowing that you can stay here for Shavasana, we'll transition there now. So what I'm going to do for my Shavasana is leave the legs as they are, but just unravel the blanket so my entire back body is now supported by a soft blanket. Once you found your Shavasana position, stay there and rest. Take another few breaths, noticing any changes in the body and the mind. Take a moment to say something positive to yourself. And then we'll enjoy a few moments here in our final resting pose in Shavasana. I invite you to linger here for as much time as you have. Closing down the video if you have extra time to rest here. But if you're working with our time frame, we'll end our class here. And in your own time, you can slowly make your way up and into the rest of your day. Thank yourself for taking this time here to find this rest and rejuvenation for the spine. Until next time, namaste.